Picture this. You're running, not for exercise, not because you're late. You're running because something is chasing you, or because the hunting party is moving and you have to keep up, or because the ground gave way and you didn't see it in time. And then you fall. You hear it before you feel it. A sound that shouldn't come from inside a human body. And then the pain arrives. Not gradually, all at once. And you look down, and something is wrong with your leg in a way that cannot be undone by simply standing up. You have broken a bone. You are 10,000 years ago. There is no hospital. There is no doctor. There is no road to drive you anywhere. There is just the ground, the pain, and whoever is standing next to you. The first thing you need to understand is what a broken bone actually means in the wild, not the inconvenience version, the real version. A broken femur, the large bone in your thigh, can cause you to bleed internally so severely that you lose enough blood to go into shock within hours. Without intervention, a femur fracture in the wilderness is often fatal, not eventually, quickly. A broken leg of any kind means you cannot walk, and a person who cannot walk in a world that moves constantly, following herds, shifting camps, covering miles every single day, is a person the group has a decision to make about. And here is the thing that archaeology keeps telling us over and over again in finding after finding. They didn't leave them behind. In 2007, researchers studying skeletal remains from a site in the Shanidar cave in Iraq found something that stopped them. A Neanderthal, not even a modern human, a Neanderthal, had survived for years with a withered arm, a damaged eye socket, and injuries so severe that he could not possibly have survived alone. Someone fed him, someone kept him warm, someone stayed. This wasn't an isolated case. Across dozens of archaeological sites spanning tens of thousands of years, researchers keep finding the same pattern. Healed bones, fractures that knitted back together correctly, bodies that show weeks, months, sometimes years of survival after injuries that would have been immediately fatal without sustained care. Someone had to know what they were doing, and the evidence suggests they did. Because setting a broken bone is not obvious. If you've ever seen what an unset fracture looks like, the way the muscles contract and pull the bone ends apart, the swelling that sets in within hours, the way the whole limb distorts, you understand that doing nothing is not a neutral option. Doing nothing means the bone heals wrong. A badly healed leg bone means a permanent limp. A permanent limp for a hunter-gatherer who walks 8 to 12 miles every single day means a shortened life. They had to act, and they had to act fast, before the swelling made it impossible. What they almost certainly did is something surgeons still recognize today: traction and reduction. You pull the broken ends apart, overcoming the muscle spasm, and then guide them back into alignment. It is agonizing. It requires at least 2 people, one to hold the patient still, one to manipulate the limb. And it requires someone who has done it before or watched it done, or been taught by someone who watched it done. Knowledge, passed between people, across generations, not written down, not in a textbook, carried in someone's hands and memory. Once the bone was set, it had to be held. Archaeologists have found evidence of splinting going back at least 3,500 years in Egypt, rigid supports bound against broken limbs to keep them immobile while they healed. But the technique almost certainly predates the evidence. Wood, bark, reeds, animal hide bound tightly around a limb. The principle is simple enough that you could arrive at it by observation alone. Hold it still, keep it straight, wait. Waiting was the hard part. A broken leg takes 6 to 8 weeks to heal, 6 to 8 weeks of not walking. In a group that moves, that eats what it catches, that has no surplus to speak of, 6 weeks of feeding someone who cannot contribute is not nothing. It is a real cost, shared across the group. Every extra portion given to someone who cannot hunt or gather is a portion someone else doesn't have. And they did it anyway. What that tells us is something archaeologists have been quietly saying for decades, and that almost never makes it into the popular version of prehistory. These people were not brutal. They were not indifferent to suffering. They had medicine, they had caregivers, they had something that functioned, in every meaningful sense of the word, like compassion. There is a skeleton found in a Neolithic site in France. A young man, both legs broken, one of them broken twice. The second fracture happening before the first had fully healed, which means he broke the same leg again during his recovery. Both fractures healed. He survived. He lived on. Think about what that required. The first break, someone set it, splintered it, fed him for weeks. Then, somehow, during recovery, he broke it again. And the group did it all over again. Set it, splintered it, fed him, waited. Nobody left. Nobody decided he was too much. They just kept going. You are descended from the people who did that. Not the people who walked away, the people who stayed, the people who knew how to set a bone, who carried that knowledge in their hands, who fed someone through 8 weeks of healing because that was what you did. The broken bone was not a death sentence. It was a test, not of the injured person's strength, of everyone else's. And 10,000 years ago, on a frozen plain or a forest floor, with no hospital and no road and nothing but each other, they passed it every single time.